Let me start with this. I'm not an overly religious person, but I don't have any answers. I don't know. But I never thought there can't be a sports god. Because all gods, no matter what the god is, what the book you read is, gods have a sense of fairness, right? They're loving, caring, that's obviously. But a god, any god would have a sense of fairness. And the sports gods are never fair. If the sports gods were fair, wouldn't the Utah Jazz, after 20 straight playoff appearances, that played better defense than virtually everybody not named the Bulls for 2 decades, wouldn't they have a title? They don't. But yet in 2010, the Dallas Mavericks, a 3rd seed in the West, with Dirk Nowitzki and 9 guys about as talented as J.J. Barea, won a title. That doesn't seem fair. Salt Lake City's the holiest city. Dallas has great strip clubs. That doesn't seem fair, God. The Buffalo Bills under Jim Kelly dominate the AFC for a decade. They're good people. They love working class city. They love their team. No titles. 4 Super Bowls, no titles. And yet, big, rich, loaded, historic New York, the Giants, Phil Simms gets hurt. They throw in Jeff Hostetler. And behind Mark Bavaro, Phil McConkey, and Otis Anderson, New York wins another title. So Buffalo gets hosed, and they're dominant with Hall of Famers everywhere. And the Giants win a title? Come on, there's no sports god. But that leads me to Peyton Manning. NFL MVPs got the most ever. Passing touchdowns, most ever. Passing yards by a mile, most ever. 4,000 passing yard seasons, most ever. Wins, tied for most ever. Single season, touchdown passes, yards, most ever. He's remarkable. He reinvented the position. How much sense would it have made if 30 years from now, you're young and you just start enjoying the NFL and you go get a record book and you said, well, how good is Peyton Manning? I mean, his less talented brother, Eli, who could barely win a division in 10, 15 years, he won 2 Super Bowls. Peyton, how good could he be? He only won 1. It wouldn't make any sense, right? You'd be like, that's not justified. Even Archie Manning would be like, yeah, my more talented son, actually, he didn't win the Super Bowls. My son, who's more driven, more aspirational, worked harder, more willful, yeah, he won half as many as Eli. But finally, I have a sense there's a sports god. Because Peyton Manning, for virtually 20 years, carried blah defenses. And finally this year, when he's shot, off surgery, plays half the games, can't step and throw down the field, God stepped in and said, I'm going to give you, Peyton, your greatest defense, and they will then carry you to a title, and then you will retire. God is British, yeah. I mean, so many times I've thought to myself, there can't be a sports god. Dan Marino doesn't get a title. Same state Brad Johnson, captain checkdown, does. The Florida Marlins don't even care about baseball. They build a new stadium, nobody shows up. They've got 2 World Series. I think their average attendance last year for the Marlins was 9. The Chicago Cubs have cared for 108 years. That's the last time they've won. Teddy Roosevelt was president. Now he's a mascot. They can't get bubkas. There's no sports god. It doesn't exist. It can't. Or you wouldn't have the Buffalo Bills with Jim Kelly, or the Jazz with Stockton and Malone, and the Cubs losing and the Marlins winning. But this feels like the man upstairs stepped in and said, wait a minute. This guy's done everything for the game. He's created the best personal rivalry with another player, Brady. He's basically carried the AFC, he and Belichick and Brady. He's been so good. There's passing camps. He's given so much to the game. And I'm going to let Eli get 2 great defensive line and win 2 titles? And I'm going to give Peyton 1? No. Let me step in. I don't like to do this. I generally like to let things play out. But this time I will step in. And I will guide Peyton Manning to a 2nd Super Bowl. Now, Stockton and Malone are furious. Jim Kelly is like, what about me? But I feel like there was almost intervention. This is the way it should have ended. Peyton carried franchises, coaches, defenses for 20 years. And finally, when he was shot, Somebody carried him finally and gave him one that he probably was worth about 30% of it. But that's the way it should be. Because Eli wouldn't even have those playoff runs without those defensive linemen. OC and Strahan and Tuck. And I mean, it's really remarkable.